Good afternoon. I want to welcome members of the media here. I want to welcome my colleagues as we really officially kick off the 2023 session here in Albany. It's a new year, a new session, but the same challenges, I think, that faced New Yorkers last year continue to persist. And this conference, though we have 8 new members, this conference remains a bulwark and a voice for those New Yorkers on a lot of issues that my friends across the aisle, the majority, refuse to address. So last week we heard a litany of landmark accomplishments from the Democrats in the state Senate. But there were things that were missing. I was waiting to hear them talk about how they made New York more dangerous with their soft on crime policies, like removing cashless bail when they instituted that. That was left off. They didn't talk anything about the increase in crime against minorities and against women. They didn't talk about the crime in Rochester, New York City. They didn't talk about affordability and how the cost of almost everything has gone up in the state of New York, including the state budget, which they have controlled the last 3 years. Taxes have gone up. The gas tax expired, even though we came back. And of course, they didn't mention that they gave themselves a $32,000 pay raise. Even on the floor, they cited that New York State's one of the most expensive states to live in. So I guess they thought affordability only affected them. They didn't talk at all about strengthening or anything they've done to strengthen our workforce or to stem the outflow of people leaving this state. And they certainly didn't talk about providing more freedom, whether it be to parents or workers, employers in this state. Those are all things that this conference cares about and that this conference will be a voice for. Whether it's making New York safer, whether it's making New York more affordable, whether it's making New York stronger, or whether it's making New York more free. This conference will stand up for New Yorkers on each one of those issues. And those issues are the issues that New Yorkers care about. Those are the issues that poll after poll shows New Yorkers care about. And those are the issues that my colleagues in the Democratic Conference in the Senate have either done nothing about or have actually hurt those issues. They've hurt New Yorkers on each one of those issues, and they've made them worse. New Yorkers are less free. New Yorkers are less safe. This state is weaker because of their leadership. And it's certainly, nobody can tell you that this state is more affordable. And those things have all happened. This is not last week. This is not last year. They have been in control of every chamber, every branch of government for the past 4 years now. And this state has gotten worse. The outflow of people leaving New York has continued. We've lost congressional representation. We've lost clout in Washington, D.C. And anybody in this chamber, anybody in this building, Democrat or Republican, senator or assemblyman or governor, if they are not doing anything to change the outflow of migration, to stem the flow of human capital from this state, then they are part of the problem. And you're going to hear from some members that we have in this conference who want to be part of the solution. I do want to recognize our 8 new members. From Senate District 3, we have Dean Murray. From Senate District 5, we have Steve Rhodes. From District 7, Jack Martins. And from District 8, we have Patricia Canzaneri Fitzpatrick. From up in Rockland County, District 38, we have Bill Weber. In District 39, we have Rob Rollison. Right here in the Capital Region, District 43, we have Jake Ashby. and succeeding longtime Senator Patty Ritchie from the North Country in District 49, we have Mark Walczyk. At this time, it gives me pleasure to introduce one of those new members, although there's like a little asterisk next to his name because he is no stranger to this Senate. He is no stranger to Albany, but most importantly, he's no stranger to the issues that we are going to be talking about, particularly this next issue of public safety, and that is from Long Island, Senator Jack Martins.
Good afternoon, everyone. Leader Ort, thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you to all of my colleagues for putting together this program and this agenda. It is robust, but it is what New York needs. As New Yorkers, we all want the same thing. We want to be safe in our homes, we want to be safe in our communities, and we want to be able to afford to live here and to raise our families. With this plan, we've listed for New Yorkers all of these things and address each of these issues in turn. We push back on the Democrats' pro-criminal tax and spend policies that we've seen over the last 4 years. These policies have not only left our families less safe, they've increased the cost for everything across the board, from food in our supermarkets to energy to heat our homes. It's high time that the Democrats stop letting the tip of the tail wag the dog. The few members of their conference that have time and again placed agenda items in front of New York's best interest and time and again have failed New Yorkers, certainly New Yorkers in places like the 7th Senate District, but across New York State. Today, New York is less safe. Today, New York is less affordable. Today, New York has less opportunities than it did just 4 years ago because of our colleagues on the other side of the aisle allowing the tip of the tail to wag the dog. When it comes to public safety, this program that we've proposed today will make New York safer. It will allow judges discretion in sentencing criminals and hold them accountable. It will focus on removing illegal guns from our streets, because as we all know, the vast majority of crimes that take place involving guns are from illegal guns. Now, Democrats will talk about the iron pipeline that bring illegal guns into New York State, but they will never stand up and hold those who own illegal guns accountable and make sure that they go to jail. Because we have to be strong on crime, we have to be strong on illegal guns if we're going to actually convince people that we are all in for a safer New York. This plan will focus on mental health because all too often criminals are acting out because they lack the mental health facilities, the mental health care, and this plan will provide for that. And this plan will take on the challenges of the opioid epidemic. We won't hide from it. We won't sugarcoat it. It was there 10 years ago. It's there today. It continues to get worse. We continue to hear more and more people suffering from opioid addiction, from the disease. And we hear about the impacts of the scourge of fentanyl and the lives that have been lost throughout New York State. That is not an urban problem. It's not a suburban problem. It's not a rural problem. It's a problem that affects every corner of the state, and it's high time we addressed it head on. And this plan does that. In making New York a stronger New York, the Republican plan will focus on infrastructure, will focus on sewers, will focus on the environment, will focus on clean water, It will focus on parental rights and the absolute right that we have to make sure that our parents are there when decisions are made about their children. As a parent myself, it is incumbent upon each and every one of us to recognize there is no substitute for parental rights. There is no substitute for the right of a parent to be there and to make decisions about their child, whether it's a school or someone else. And lastly, when it comes to affordability, it's high time this state enforced a strict state spending cap, because every dollar that comes out of our pocket to pay for something in New York State is one less dollar we have to support our families, to save for a better day, to invest in our communities, to create jobs. So, Leader, thank you so much for organizing this. I thank my colleagues for coming up with this robust plan, and I'm looking forward to working with our colleagues across the aisle. Because, ladies and gentlemen, there are 63 members of the New York State Senate. And we keep hearing about 13 or 14 of them saying no to different things. But it's high time that the tail stopped wagging the dog. It's high time that we remember there are 49 other senators in this chamber who are willing to work together in the middle to get these things done and to prioritize New York State's families, New York State's workers, and to make New York a better place. So, Leader, thank you. With that, it's my pleasure and privilege to introduce Senator Pam Helming. Senator Helming.
Thank you, Senator Martins. Good afternoon, everyone. Happy New Year. It's great to be back here at the state capitol. As you heard, our plan for a safer, stronger, more affordable, and more free New York State provides the roadmap for the changes that New Yorkers are looking for. I want to talk to you a little bit more about what a stronger New York means to me and what it is that I'm hearing from my constituents. It means a more affordable New York, a place where individuals can afford to live, where families can afford to raise their children, not struggle to make ends meet. It means a business-friendly New York where companies want to locate and grow and create good jobs for our residents without the necessity of millions of dollars in incentives because of the excessive taxes and regulations the state imposes on them. It means renewed focus in targeted investments in workforce, in our BOCES programs, the trades, healthcare professions, advanced manufacturing, and much more. It means lower taxes for our seniors, our families, our small businesses, and our farmers. And it means healthy children. This is especially true with regard to their mental health. Our children are our future. We can't forget that. Protecting their well-being and potential must be our priority. It means stronger infrastructure, roads and bridges, broadband, especially in our rural communities, and maintaining the health of our drinking water sources. And of course, it means a safer New York, where criminals are held accountable, and people could walk the streets and take public transportation without fear. A stronger New York is more open, transparent, and accountable to its citizens, our constituents. Now, do I believe that we can achieve a stronger New York? You bet I do. If we truly listen to the needs of our constituents, all of our constituents, not just some. Our Rescue New York plan puts forth the reasonable and responsible solutions that are needed to meet these challenges. I know I'm ready to do the hard work, and every person behind me, every person in the Republican conference is ready to do the hard work that's necessary. It's what our constituents expect, and it's what they deserve. And that is what is going to create a stronger New York. At this point, it's my privilege to call on Senator Patricia Canzaroni Fitzpatrick.
Good morning. I'm Patricia Canzaneri Fitzpatrick, and I'm honored to represent the constituents of the 9th Senate District and all New Yorkers and be part of this wonderful conference. Thank you, Leader, for inviting me to speak today. My district borders on Queens County, and my district is suffering terribly from all of the things that you've heard today. More things that are making us less safe. One of the key things that allowed me to be here today is talking about rescuing New Yorkers, because that's what this is. It's a rescue mission, and it shouldn't be about Republican or Democrat issues. It's about American issues. It's about New York issues. It's about making New York safer for all of our families. It's about making it affordable for all of our families. The 9th Senate District, like others, borders on New York City, and the congestion pricing that is a regressive tax that is imposed regardless of your income, preventing people from going into New York City, has to change. It is putting the burden and the financial stress on middle-class Americans that live in Nassau County. That is one of the many things that this robust agenda is calling for to change the path that we are on. As I've said to so many people during my campaign, I'm a mom of 4 and a small business owner. If I ran my household the way the New York State budget is being run, we would all be out of business. There is so much debt, and there's a tax and spend continuing policy that must change. The recent increase in salaries increases our budget by $6.8 million, and it was done without hesitation. That policy, that attitude must change so that we can all afford to stay here in New York. If we don't change that policy, we will lose all New Yorkers, and that's not what any of us wants. That's certainly not what my colleagues in this conference want. I stand before you with a positive, energized attitude to know that things can change if we follow the plan that has been laid out by this conference. Again, I am proud to be here. I hope to work with everybody, Democrat and Republican, to get things done to improve New York, to improve our safety, our affordability, and to give us back the rights that we all know and enjoy. It's my honor to now introduce another fellow colleague, Senator Mark Walsick.
Leader. Gentlemen and ladies, awesome to be out here today. Excited to get after it in a new session, and honestly, could not be more proud to stand with the men and women to my right and left and behind me who are a part of the solution for Albany. It is rare that you find a conference and leadership that actually puts together a plan and says this is how you fix this state, and that is exactly what this conference and this leader are doing today, and I'm so proud to be here. For more than 2 years, regulations and mandates were imposed on New Yorkers without oversight, checks, and balances because the legislature just sort of gave some executive privilege over to another branch of government. I think they were derelict in their duties, and I think most citizens in the state of New York would agree. Businesses didn't have a say, local governments didn't have a say, parents didn't have a say, and you heard Jack Martins talk about parental rights. And our already overburdened healthcare system was greatly harmed by vaccine mandates that came down from on high. It's not how this republic is supposed to work. Either schools were closed or children were forced to continue to wear masks for too long, and we see the result. They suffered emotionally, they suffered developmentally, and they suffered educationally. We need to focus our efforts on helping our schools close that learning gap so that many of our school children experience throughout the pandemic, and ensure that the voices of parents, teachers, and administrators who all went through this, that their voices are heard loud and clear. Not just mandates from Albany bureaucrats that work over in the state education building or on the second floor. We must continue to ensure that every child has access to the very best educational opportunities. It's written in the Constitution of the state of New York, and that those opportunities prepare our future generation of leaders. Our economy is still struggling to recover due to prolonged and unfair government shutdowns. Small businesses were forced to shut their doors, shorten their hours, cut staffing, and change their operations based on unfair government mandates. We need to get off the backs of those small businesses. They want to rehire people. Some people just aren't getting back into the workforce. And focus on creating an environment where they can thrive and prosper again. Checks and balances are so important to our government. They're important if we actually apply them. It is necessary to ensure decisions are made on what is best for New Yorkers and not one particular political party that happens to be in control of all of those checks and balances right now. Our agenda will help lead to a more free New York by standing up and speaking out against the overreach of Albany bureaucrats. We will continue to hold one-party rule accountable and ensure that millions of New Yorkers that we represent are heard by state government. The Republican conference in the state Senate represents about 6.7 million New Yorkers. That's not a small number. That is a significant voice that we bring to not just the Senate chamber, but to the halls in Albany. And for the health of our representative democracy, the Senate and the Assembly need to have a strong opposition voice. But the time of elections is over. Now it's time for us to work together. It's time for Democrats to hear a plan because they haven't presented one. And I'm so proud to stand with this conference and the leader who leads it, a leader by right term, Leader Rob Ortt.
Thank you, Senator Walczyk. Thank you, Senator Helming, Senator Canzoneri Fitzpatrick, and of course, Senator Martins for their comments, for their service. And I think that's a great way to end it, and we're going to move over to questions. The idea that we have a plan. It is crystal clear the issues that this conference is going to focus on, the issues that this conference is going to advance and give voice to. And these are the issues that I guarantee you every one of my members heard when they were on the campaign trail, when they were talking to voters in their district. When you talk about a more free New York, freedom breeds opportunity. Opportunity will keep people here. They're leaving to seek opportunities elsewhere. When you talk about a safer New York, people are not going to stay. Businesses are not going to invest in places that they do not feel safe for their employees or themselves. Affordable. The Democrats on the floor just a few weeks ago said New York is an expensive state, one of the most expensive states in the country. That was their words. They helped themselves. They've done nothing to help the people they represent. And obviously a stronger New York is a healthier New York, and that again is what is going to keep people here. This conference stands with the victim over the criminal. It stands with the individual over the bureaucracy. That is where this conference is going to keep our focus and where we're going to give voice. And as you heard, 6.2 million New Yorkers are represented by this conference. We're not going to forget that. We're not going to let our colleagues across the aisle forget that. And we're here to get to work. And with that, certainly happy to take any questions.
Mayor Adams this year, Senator, will be an ally for you guys on issues like cash bail and some of the other criminal justice changes that have taken effect in recent years?
Yeah, you know, Nick, I don't know that he hasn't been an ally. I think he has given voice to some of these issues in the past. Obviously, we hope that he continues to give voice to that, and I hope that in some cases he understands the clout and cachet that he has as the mayor of the largest city and as the mayor of a city where a lot of my colleagues represent portions of, to really push back and try to enact some change. Look, the reality is, and everyone here knows this, and so do all of you, we need Democrats to not just talk about these issues, but to actually push forward solutions to these issues. And that's going to have to come from the governor. It's going to have to come from people like Mayor Adams, particularly I think on criminal justice reform and on the crime policies, which have affected his city maybe more than any other place in the state of New York. So I certainly hope he remains an ally and we can grow that partnership to enact some real changes on these issues like you're talking about. Karen? So I'll answer it this way, Karen. So we have talked about this as a conference briefly. I know we're going to talk about it again this week, now that we're all here together. My comments, as far as our conference goes, I think this conference is keeping a very open mind on Judge LaSalle. I think this conference wants to hear from Judge LaSalle. They want to talk to Judge LaSalle, and they believe he should get a hearing and a floor vote for Judge LaSalle. I have reached out. At the end of last year, I reached out to the governor. I had conversations with a member of her staff. We have clearly telegraphed a willingness, which is more than I can say for the Democratic Conference. They have publicly said they are unwilling, many of them, unwilling to consider Judge LaSalle, that he's not even, it's a non-starter. Our conference has kept an open mind, and yet the governor has refused to reach out to me or to engage in a conversation. She has to decide if she's going to cater to the radical left, if she's going to cater to Senator Gianaris, who's upset because his redistricting plan was tossed out by this court, or if she's going to stand up for all New Yorkers, if she's going to stand up and fight for her pick. And that includes working with this conference. But she has been unwilling to do that at this time. So, I don't know that if she's not willing to show the courage to get up there and fight for her nominee, which may include working across the aisle, then I don't think that bodes well for a lot of other issues this session.
Next question. There were reports that came out about the governor lobbying some members about this recently during the last few days. Have you received any calls like that? Did any of your members talk to Governor Lobbies about this?
As I said, Kate, I have not. I have spoken to the governor's office last year. That was me calling them. That was me trying to do some of their work for them. And I'm doing that because I think Judge LaSalle both deserves a fair shot, and I think this conference, and I think the court, the judicial branch, is an important part of our government here, and that separation of branches and us doing our job. A governor's appointee has not received a floor vote ever. So what they're talking about is historic for all the wrong reasons. But again, the governor needs to do some work here and reach out and find people who are willing to support her nomination. Our conference has clearly said we are willing to hear the judge, we are willing to meet with the judge, and I think one could lead, we are willing to at least consider supporting him. But again, if it doesn't come to a floor vote, if she can't get it there, then it doesn't matter.
How about this agenda too? I mean, you said that the governor was meeting you and the other minority leader. Has that happened yet this year? And have you discussed this agenda and maybe she floated that she was pushing maybe some other changes to bail reform the various discussions happening?
Yeah, so there's always, pushing for changes to bail reform. We're pushing, affordability, the housing. There's a lot of lip service given to these issues by my colleagues, including the governor and others, but I have not seen a lot of action. So it is the new year. Tomorrow's her State of the State. So I still expect to take her up on her offer that she extended at the end of last year to sit down and meet with her. And should she ever offer to sit down and meet with me, she will always find a willing participant.
Mom, with the state spending cap, do you have a specific number in mind, and is that something that was proposed before?
Yeah, we have, this conference in my entire time here have always stood for that 2% spending cap to be enacted. Obviously, some of those details over the years can be nuanced as far as, is it rate of inflation? Are there certain things that are, not included in that? But this conference has always stood to restrain spending. And without a cap, without something in law, I don't think anyone here, including all of you, are going to hold their breath that my colleagues across the aisle are going to be able to do it on their own, that they suddenly will find the fiscal discipline to rein it in. In 2 years, the budget went from $192 billion to $220 billion in 2 years. So, we always say this, our budget is larger than Texas and Florida's combined. So unless suddenly the Texas and Florida legislature is here doing the budget, I don't think the budget's going to be restrained by my colleagues across the aisle. So I think that's why we have to have a law, something that forces them to adhere to some kind of fiscal restraint.
And then when it comes to expanding parental rights, is there something in particular that triggered that, and what would that look like?
So I'll certainly allow, if there's someone else who wants to address that, but I'll say, I think the the discussions that occurred over the last year and a half during COVID with regard to education mandates, with regard to education policies, the idea that unelected education bureaucrats were making decisions, and that parents, I think not only here in New York, but across the country, felt like, whoa, wait a second. We have no say in what our kids being taught, how they're being taught. That's why we have elected school boards. That's why parents should be able to go and impact what their kids are learning. And so we want to make sure that parents know, and that our colleagues know, that this conference, absolutely, if we're going to have a fight between the education department here in New York State and parents, if we're going to have a fight between the bureaucracy of education, the faceless bureaucracy, and parents, this conference will always fall on the side of parents. Zach.
So retail theft has been a big part of the ongoing discussion.
Sure.
Now there's store owners in New York City are actually calling on state legislature to do a few things that are kind of new to the bail reform debate. One of them is make assaults on retail workers a Class D felony, kind of like the transit workers.
Yep.
And another one is kind of interesting because it would basically allow someone to be charged with grand larceny if you add up all the things they've stolen on different days.
Sure.
It's more than 1,000 versus $20 or $50. Has this issue come up with any of your members, and is there any interest in sponsoring these ideas and moving forward?
I'm very confident this conference backs both of those ideas, 100%. I will tell you that getting my colleagues across the aisle to enact a new crime, I might be able to invent a new fusion power cell faster than that will happen. And so, but yes, those two issues, I think, those highlight maybe another nuance to when we talk about crimes and criminal justice and bail. Those are issues that I think are retail businesses, not just your big retailers, but mom and pop retailers in places like Long Island, in places like upstate New York. They're seeing it too, and they don't have nearly the ability to handle those losses. Walmart and some of the big retailers, they build in some of those losses. Not that it's okay, but they can survive them. But a smaller retailer, like so many other issues, are much more negatively impacted and acutely impacted by things like you're referring to. So I think this conference absolutely would support both those initiatives and maybe even additional ones.
Josh?
I'm sorry, Josh.
The governor has obviously projected that she's going to talk a lot about housing from state to state. Do you see building more housing, particularly in the suburbs of Long Island or in Westchester, as a remedy for the out-migration crisis?
So I'll answer it this way, Josh. First of all, if people aren't willing to build new homes, we should ask ourselves why that is. Because in my experience with home builders, at least where I live, it's more home building. They like to build homes because they sell them and make money off it. That literally is their business. So if they're not willing to do it, there must be a reason why, meaning they think it's actually more advantageous financially to not build a new home than to build it. So when I hear my colleagues talk about we have an affordable housing crisis, they are part of that crisis. They let tax credits expire. They let conditions get to a point where it is not advantageous for people to build more homes here in New York. And so I think we have to look in the mirror as to why that affordable housing crisis, or why there's a lack of housing. And there's ways to incentivize more building, but it's not coercive. It is, in my estimation, is not going to be their solution. We should encourage the market. We can do things from a pro-business, pro-growth, see affordability, as far as helping increase housing built, by the private sector. And then obviously, I know in New York City and other places you have, it used to be 421A, and there was a reason for that. There was a reason why it was there. It wasn't just a giveaway to the developers. It was because it made it advantageous for them to build affordable housing in one of the most expensive real estate markets in the world. So my colleagues need to, this is not, you don't get to be just day one not understand these things. These are things they need to understand as to why, for every action there's a reaction, cause and effect. They need to understand these issues, and that's why we've always advocated that home builders and developers are at the table, because they will help you get to where you want to go. They would like to construct new homes. They would like to construct new housing. But we, more than anything else, are the single biggest impediment, meaning the state government, to why that's not happening, and New Yorkers are suffering for it.
Senator, one last thing.
Only for you, Nick, only for you.
Thank you. Good to hear already. Some Democratic lawmakers are calling for an expansion of what's been called the Excluded Workers Fund, covering undocumented immigrants who are on benefits. What are your reaction to that?
Spoiler alert, we are absolutely against that. Look, we were against the initial creation of the fund. Initially, the fund was created, if you all recall, under the guise of COVID, it was like a one-time thing. Now, we opposed it then, and one of the reasons this conference stood against it and spoke against it was because we knew that we would be here several years later where they were trying to make this a permanent thing, a permanent fund for those in the country illegally, for those who do not pay income taxes, period. No matter what my colleagues say, they do not pay income taxes. If they did, they would have a Social Security number and they'd be paying it. They don't. There's ways to address those things. What my colleagues are trying to do, and this is another example, they're trying to create de facto citizenship. They're trying to create citizenship in every way they can because, of course, states cannot grant citizenship. So we do it in ways like this. And this conference is for smart policies, but we can't even take care of New Yorkers, people who are here paying the highest taxes in the country, people who are struggling to stay here, to put their kids through school, to maybe keep those doors open for one more week, one more day. And we're going to do this? That's a slap in the face from where I come from and where our conference comes from on this issue.